Hi, it's Mr. Mitchell again. Let's have another science video, shall we? Go ahead and write down the questions, and we'll do the video in just a second. Today we're talking about the rest of the world. You see, all the world isn't in a specific biome. You may remember the last video we had rainforest biomes and desert biomes all the way to tundra biomes. And we even filled out a little map. But every place where animals are is not categorized as a biome. So that's the rest of the world. So one place where you don't find a specific biome is a mountain range. If I can find my pen, I'll get to color in here. Anyway, a mountain range, you'll have multiple biomes. You can see this diagram right here. We have at the top of the mountain, you have the ice and snow. Down below it, you have an area here where you really don't have much vegetation, maybe a little shrubbery. That would be the tundra. We have an area right below it where you have this forest area, and the trees look like pine trees. And pine trees have needles and cones. So that would be the boreal forest. And you may remember that that's also called taiga. So if you see that on the CRCT, talking about the same thing. You might even find it in a textbook or on the internet too. Underneath that, you can see we have different kinds of trees. These are the deciduous trees, the ones where you would have leaves to it. And probably even below that, you could have some kind of rainforest perhaps, or just depending on where it is, maybe even some kind of desert there. So as you go up a mountain, you get into different biomes. So if you're an animal up here that has adapted to living in the taiga, then it would be kind of hard for you to then go up and find your niche in the tundra, or to go down and find your niche in whatever rainforest or desert, whatever biome is there. So animals that are going up and down a mountain, they're kind of in that spot for perhaps their entire lifetime. Looking in my notes to see where I left off. There's another place where you would not find a particular biome, and that is where you have ice or glaciers. I don't know if you remember or not, but you had Greenland, which did not have much as far as a biome because you have mostly ice on it. And all this area right here, if this top area of the mountain is covered in ice and snow, you don't really call it a particular biome. So tops of going up and down mountains, places with glaciers and ice, they don't specifically have one particular biome. You may have noticed on the map that we did the other video that we did not have any biomes in the water. However, you know as well as I do, there are lots of species in the water. Water ecosystems are not part of any biome. They have all kinds of populations of animals there, animals and plants there too. Now let's talk a little bit about freshwater first. Freshwater, well, this is freshwater right up here where you have the fish in the stream. Freshwater provides habitat for many animals, and fish adapt to the kind of stream or the kind of water that it is. If you have a stream such as this, you have the water that is rushing all the time. So you're not going to have much ability for algae to build on these rocks. Any bacteria is often just rushed away. So as a result, when you get into a stream, you don't have many chances for consumers, like these fish, to feed off of algae. You usually have them feeding off of other type of fish or other type of bugs or things such as that. But that's a little bit different once you get to like a slow river. If you have like a slow river, you do have a little bit more time for algae to form, and that way you have the consumers who are feeding off these producers, and then you can have other fish, second level consumers who are feeding off these first level consumers. Ponds are even more of a chance for producers to produce algae and produce their to grow, and you have much more of a food web the slower the water happens to be. Um, what about salt water? Here we have some terms that have to do with salt water. A couple of these terms you saw in science last year. Estuary, I don't know if you remember or not, is where fresh water meets salt water. So if you have a river that is flowing here, the river, of course, is going to be fresh, but at some point as it goes into the sea, it's going to end up being salt water. So right around in this intertidal zone, this neritic area, is where you would have all that combination between fresh water and salt water. And you know it doesn't switch instantly, it kind of blends over. So what we're talking about in these three terms are all areas in the same spot. They're all areas just right in the same place here. Intertidal zone. Oh, I'm just trying to figure this out. Intertidal zone, estuary, and neritic zone are all right in the same area. And one of the reasons we're doing that is because almost no animals, almost none of them, percentage-wise, are out here in the deep ocean. You have almost all the animals in the sea in the estuary, intertidal zone, and neritic zone. So let's get to what some of these are. You know the estuary is where the fresh water meets sea. You have slower water there, lots of plants, species within that slower water. You have the consumers that can produce the plants are the consumers, the producers. You have animals which consume them. You have the whole food web going on there. Intertidal zone, you may remember, is the area between high tide and low tide, and you have quite a few animals that live their life there. Now they have to adapt a little bit more. It's kind of like a stream. A stream is an area of running water, and same thing here in the intertidal zone. You have an area of, well, not so much running water, but of splashing water. The tide is constantly coming in on these animals, and they have to adapt to that, so you don't have as much of the food web just right at that particular spot. But the neritic zone is kind of a different story, even though it's almost in the same area. We've heard the term the continental shelf. When you get into the ocean, there's an area, it could be several hundred miles long, where you still have shallow area. Whenever you have sunlight, the sunlight still beams down and can hit the bottom. You have the coral reefs, you have all kinds of life there. But once it drops off the continental shelf, once it drops out of this neritic zone, you really don't have many animals at all. So you have all kinds of life in the neritic zone. You have lots of plants, the coral reefs, which are the producers. You have consumers, which will feed off of bacteria from it. You have second level consumers, maybe even third and fourth level consumers from there. Many living things. Like I said before, the open ocean does not contain many species. Algae does exist out at the top of the open ocean, so you do have a few consumers out there to feed on those producers. Otherwise, the consumers are few and far between in the depths of the ocean. Well, I hope you've learned a little bit about the rest of the world. Don't forget to do the question.